The galaxy had been a place of calm, where various species existed in a delicate balance across the stars, their histories entwined with peace treaties and unspoken rules that held them together for generations. Ancient alliances and fragile diplomacy kept the universe running smoothly, but everything began to change the moment the massive shadow of humanity's battleship appeared in the sky. It was unlike anything seen before. No race had ever built something like this. So large, so imposing, the sheer size of the ship itself sent shockwaves across the known galaxy. The reports flooded in from every corner of space, and every species paused to consider the implications. This was no ordinary ship. It was a symbol of something far more powerful, something they had never seen, and certainly never expected. Humanity's battleship had arrived, and with it came the whisper of an entirely new force emerging in the galaxy. As the ship drifted closer to the galactic capital, a silence fell across the galaxy's core. World's communication channels were alive with speculation. What were these humans like? What did they want? What did this massive vessel represent? It was clear they were no small power, no race to be taken lightly. Some remembered the long-forgotten history of humanity's violent past, their wars, their conquests, their rise from their primitive origins. But that was long ago. Surely the humans had evolved. Surely their battleship wasn't a sign of war. Could they be different? Could they have changed? Others weren't so certain. They feared that what came from this new power might spell disaster for everyone else in the galaxy. Representatives from across the galaxy hurried to their ships and set course for the capital. It was a time of secrecy and uncertainty. The great powers met in hidden rooms, discussing the mysterious ship as it hung in the atmosphere of the capital world. Not a word was spoken out loud, yet every leader felt the weight of the moment. Something big was happening, and no one knew exactly what it meant. Some felt a surge of hope that perhaps humanity had come to offer something new to the galaxy, something that could bring an end to the endless conflict between their people. But others whispered of fear, believing the ship to be the first sign of a new age of conquest, where humanity would carve out its place by force and leave others in the dust. A council was called. The leaders of the various species would meet behind closed doors and discuss how best to respond. No one trusted anyone else. Not yet. Too much was at stake. They had to act with caution and wisdom, even as uncertainty gnawed at them. From within the council chambers, the room buzzed with the sound of clicking claws, the soft rustle of robes, the hum of silent minds at work. How would the galaxy respond to humanity's arrival? What would their first move be? What would humanity want in return for this powerful show of strength? And what could they offer in exchange? It was all unknown, even to the greatest minds among the council. And yet, as the discussions raged on, one thought echoed among them. What did the humans truly want with this incredible ship? Why had they arrived here at this exact moment in time? What message did their battleship send? Was it an invitation or a threat? And how should they respond? Would the galaxy stand united, or would it fracture under the weight of fear and doubt? As the hours passed and the council continued its debates, the looming presence of humanity's battleship remained in orbit, silent and still. Its sheer size was a constant reminder of the unknown that now hung over the galaxy. No communication had been sent from the ship, only a waiting silence that stretched across the stars. It was a silence that made even the most seasoned diplomats uneasy. The uncertainty left everyone questioning their next move. What could humanity's leaders possibly want? Was this some kind of test, a challenge to see how the galaxy would respond to their arrival? Or was it a precursor to something far more dangerous? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a transmission arrived. It was not a demand, nor a threat, but an invitation. A human envoy would land on the capital world to meet with the leaders of the galaxy. The transmission was simple, direct, and yet it carried an undeniable weight of significance. The humans had made their first move, but it was not with weapons or military might. They had chosen diplomacy, the act of offering their presence not as conquerors, but as equals. Their message was clear. They sought a place among the stars, not through war, but through understanding. The council members exchanged nervous glances. The invitation was both a relief and a new source of fear. A chance for peace was one thing, but trusting these humans after all the uncertainty seemed nearly impossible. The galaxy had been divided for so long, each species fiercely protective of their own power and way of life. To suddenly offer a place at the table to a species they knew so little about seemed risky, almost naive. But then again, could humanity really be different? Could they have risen above their history of violence and conflict? In the wake of the message, the diplomatic halls were filled with heated discussions, each representative offering their own opinion. Some saw this as an opportunity for the galaxy to advance together in ways they could never achieve alone. The humans were known to be fierce in battle, but they were also clever, resilient, and resourceful. Could they offer the galaxy new technologies, ideas, and a way forward that transcended centuries of war and stagnation? Others were more skeptical, their voices loud with fear. A few leaders who remembered humanity's early days, before they had joined the galactic community, warned that such a powerful species could never be trusted. How could they be sure the humans had truly left their violent past behind? What if they were simply hiding their true intentions? The battleship was still a menacing reminder that humanity was capable of great destruction. Was this a ploy to lull the galaxy into a false sense of security before striking? No one could say for sure. Despite the mounting unease, the Council agreed to meet with the humans. There was no going back now. The human envoy would land in a few hours, and the future of the galaxy would be shaped by whatever happened next. The fate of the galaxy's peace hung in the balance, and as the clock ticked down, every leader understood the gravity of the decision they were about to make. Would they allow the humans a place at the table, or would they turn their backs on a future that could change everything? As the Council prepared for the meeting, the galaxy held its breath. Would humanity be a force for peace, or would their arrival mark the beginning of something far more dangerous? No one knew, but the tension was palpable, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The moment arrived. The human envoy descended from their battleship, and as the craft touched down on the capital world, an eerie silence swept across the city. The sight of the humans emerging from their ship was unlike any other. They wore simple yet elegant uniforms, without any weapons visible, no signs of aggression. There was no show of force, no grand gestures, just a small group of humans, led by a calm, measured individual who exuded authority without the need for power. His name was Captain Elias Grant, and he stepped forward to meet the galaxy's leaders, not with pride, but with a quiet confidence that unsettled some and intrigued others. The representatives from every species gathered in the Grand Hall, anxiously awaiting the moment of first contact. The room was filled with tension as each species studied the humans, trying to discern their true intentions. Some observed the humans closely, noting the way they moved, the way they looked at each other. The humans did not seem arrogant or boastful, nor did they seem fearful. It was as if they were entirely certain of their place in the galaxy, and yet they held no illusions of superiority. It was a strange paradox that left the assembled leaders uncertain of what to make of them. Captain Grant's speech was short and to the point, but its impact was immediate. He spoke of humanity's past, acknowledging their history of war, conflict, and destruction, but he made no excuses. He spoke of the rise of humanity, how they had grown from a fractured, violent species to one united in a common goal, to build a better future, not just for themselves, but for others as well. The humans did not seek to dominate or conquer. They sought to share knowledge, technology, and ideas that could benefit all who were willing to strive alongside them. "We have learned through our struggles," Captain Grant said, his voice steady and filled with conviction. "That strength is not in the power to destroy, but in the ability to build, to create, and to help others rise. We do not wish to impose our will upon you, but we do believe that together we can achieve greatness. Humanity stands ready to share what we have learned, but we ask for one thing in return, that you join us in this new era, where we do not fear each other, but help each other." His words hung in the air, and for a moment, no one spoke. The weight of his message was undeniable, and yet it was met with a strange silence. Some of the leaders were moved by his sincerity, while others remained guarded, unsure of what to make of these newcomers. Was it truly possible that humanity had outgrown its violent past? Could they really offer the galaxy something new, something that had never been seen before? The silence was broken by a representative from the Andarian species, a tall, angular being who had long been known for his wisdom. "You speak of cooperation," he said, his voice measured. "But how can we trust that this is not another ploy, another strategy to manipulate us? How can we know that humanity will not eventually turn its might upon us, as so many others have done before?" Captain Grant nodded, understanding the doubt. "I cannot ask you to trust us blindly," he said. "What I can offer is this, the promise that we will never act in secret, that we will stand beside you, not above you, as we walk this path together. We have no desire to conquer. We have come to create, to inspire, and to build a future where the old ways of war are no longer needed." The room was still tense, but something had shifted. It was clear that humanity's arrival was not just a challenge, it was an opportunity to change the way the galaxy had operated for millennia. The leaders exchanged looks, their minds racing with possibilities. Could they trust the humans? Could they set aside their fears and embrace this new path? The answer was not immediate, but as the council meeting continued, one thing became clear. Humanity had arrived, not as conquerors, but as partners. And whether they were ready or not, the galaxy was about to change forever. The days following Captain Grant's speech were filled with intense debates, both public and private. The galaxy's leaders could not agree on what to make of humanity's offer. Some, inspired by the human envoy's words, saw the possibility of a new era. The idea of cooperation, of unity in a galaxy that had been fractured for centuries, seemed almost too good to be true. But there were others who were not so easily swayed. The whispers of doubt grew louder as factions within the galaxy's leadership grew wary of the humans' intentions. Fear began to take root, spreading like wildfire across the galaxy. The sheer power of humanity's battleship, the advanced technology, the strategic might, was a constant reminder of what they had the potential to do. Some of the most powerful military figures in the galaxy spoke out against humanity's arrival. They questioned how it was possible for a species with such devastating force to arrive with peaceful intentions. Was this really a gift, or was it a clever ruse? Humanity had already proven they could unite and become a formidable force. What if their true goal was not peace, but dominance? The uncertainty gnawed at the edges of every conversation. In a hidden chamber deep within the capital world's core, a group of military leaders convened. Their faces were stern, their voices low. "We cannot afford to trust them," said General Vorn of the Zelran coalition, his fingers drumming against the table. "They've already shown us that they have the power to wipe us out with one move. If we give them a seat at the table, they will use it to manipulate us, to divide us. They will make us weak, and then strike when we are vulnerable." Another voice, the sharp and calculating Lady Zashara of the Quixari Dominion, spoke up. "I agree with Vorn. We cannot be naive. We've heard their words, but words are just that, empty promises. We must be prepared for what comes next. Humanity has something they want from us, and we need to figure out what it is before we make any deals." Despite the growing fear among some, a number of species began to advocate for giving humanity a chance. They spoke of their own long struggles for survival and the lessons learned from hard-earned peace. They pointed to the fact that humanity had offered no ultimatums, no threats. They could have easily overrun the galaxy with their military might, but they had chosen not to. That in itself spoke volumes to many who still believed that a new path forward was possible. One of the strongest proponents of this new path was High Counselor Erin of the Tellari Order, a race known for their deep connection to diplomacy and peace. She stood before the council and addressed the divided leaders, her voice calm but firm. "We have been given a rare gift. Humanity is offering us the chance to do what we have not yet done. Work together, not as separate factions, but as one united galaxy. If we reject this opportunity out of fear, we will remain locked in an endless cycle of division and distrust. I believe humanity wants to help us rise, to join us in a future where we can finally leave the old ways of war behind." Her words carried weight. The chamber was still, and for a moment, it seemed as though the galaxy might actually choose to embrace this unprecedented offer. But even as some began to lean toward diplomacy, there remained those who were not convinced. The tension continued to simmer beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. It was clear now that the decision would not come easily. There would be no simple vote, no quick resolution. The galaxy was at a crossroads, and the road they chose could either lead to unity or further fracture. Humanity had cast its stone into the waters, and now the galaxy had to decide how to respond. Would they rise to the challenge, or would fear keep them from reaching for something greater? The future of the galaxy was in their hands, and humanity was waiting for their answer. As the days passed, the battles between hope and fear raged on. The Council was not united, and each passing hour felt like another step toward an uncertain future. Would the galaxy find the courage to trust in humanity, or would they fall back on their old instincts of fear and mistrust? The answer was still to come, and the tension was unbearable. The tension that had gripped the galaxy in the aftermath of humanity's arrival only deepened in the days that followed. The debate grew more intense, dividing factions and species, each one fearful of making the wrong decision. Some continued to see humanity's offer as a lifeline, an opportunity to evolve into something greater together. Others saw it as a dangerous gamble, a chance to be manipulated and eventually overpowered by a species whose true intentions were still unclear. Yet despite the fear and suspicion, the Council had agreed on one thing: they would meet humanity in person once again. A grand summit was called, one that would bring the galaxy's leaders together in a single place to decide once and for all whether to accept humanity's offer. The capital world's Great Hall was filled with representatives from every corner of the galaxy. The air was thick with anticipation, the weight of the decision pressing down on every leader in the room. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance, and no one knew how the next few hours would unfold. Humanity's envoy arrived with the same calm, collected demeanor they had shown during their initial meeting. This time, however, they were not alone. Alongside Captain Elias Grant stood a team of human scientists, engineers, and diplomats, all prepared to present the knowledge and technologies they were willing to share with the galaxy. As the humans stepped into the hall, the silence was deafening. Every eye was on them, watching, waiting for their next move. Captain Grant stepped forward and addressed the assembly. "We stand before you not as conquerors, but as partners," he began. "We have brought with us not just technology, but knowledge that has taken humanity centuries to achieve. We have learned the hard way that power used for destruction only leads to more suffering. Our history is one of conflict, but it is also one of redemption. We offer you what we have learned, but only if you are willing to join us in this effort. Together, we can create a future where war is no longer necessary, where every species can thrive, not through conflict, but through cooperation." The room was still, the weight of his words settling over the gathering. Some leaders listened closely, their faces thoughtful, while others remained cautious, their eyes narrowed with suspicion. The delegation of scientists and engineers began to present their ideas, showcasing humanity's advancements in energy, medicine, and space travel, technologies that could revolutionize entire civilizations. The galaxy's leaders listened intently, some clearly impressed by what humanity had to offer. Yet despite the promises of progress, there was still a lingering fear that humanity's true motives remained hidden. As the summit wore on, an unexpected challenge arose. A faction of the galaxy, the Salquar Dominion, rejected humanity's offer outright. Their leader, the cunning and ambitious Chancellor Viler, stood up and made his voice heard. "We are not fools," he said, his tone sharp and mocking. "You ask us to trust you, to put our futures in your hands, yet you bring only promises. We have seen your power, your battleship, and we know the cost of trusting a species like yours. What is it that you truly want? What are you hiding beneath your polite words and peaceful gestures?" The room fell into an uneasy silence as Chancellor Weiler's words echoed in the minds of every leader present. His voice was the voice of doubt, a fear that humanity was not to be trusted. But Captain Grant did not flinch. He stood tall, his expression unwavering. "You ask what we want," he said calmly, "and I will give you the answer. We want a future where all species have the chance to prosper. We want to share what we have learned, not to control, but to uplift." There is nothing hidden beneath our words, only the hope that we can create something better together. For a long moment, no one spoke. It was a moment of decision, one that would define the course of the galaxy's future. The galaxy's leaders turned to each other, weighing the risks, considering the possibilities. The humans had made their case, but was it enough to overcome the fear that had been instilled over centuries of war and distrust? Could they trust humanity to be the partners they claimed to be, or would they, too, eventually fall prey to the same cycle of power and domination that had consumed the galaxy for so long? The silence in the hall was broken by High Counselor Erin, her voice quiet but resolute. "If we reject this opportunity," she said, "then we are no better than those who came before us, clinging to old ways and old fears. We must move forward, even if it means taking a step into the unknown." Her words, though simple, carried a weight that seemed to shift the atmosphere in the room. Slowly, cautiously, the council began to lean toward a decision. The question remained: would they seize this moment, or would they let fear rule them once more? The decision was not reached easily. The council members sat in tense silence, the weight of the moment hanging over them like a storm cloud. Each leader was torn between the promise of a new future and the deep, ingrained fear that history had taught them to harbor. As the hours passed, the air in the chamber grew heavier, the quiet murmur of hushed conversations and whispered doubts rising and falling in waves. Many looked to High Counselor Erin, her words having sparked a shift in the room, but even she seemed uncertain, her face a mask of contemplation. At last, it was the voice of an elder that broke the stillness, a quiet, almost fragile voice, one that carried the authority of age and experience. It was Keelan Trak, an ancient being from the Xanthi race, whose long life had been marked by the careful study of the stars and the species that inhabited them. His appearance was frail, his skin a dark, weathered green, but his mind was as sharp as ever. When he spoke, even the most hardened leaders listened. "I have lived through countless cycles of war," he began, his voice steady, "and I have seen more species fall to the same trap we are now facing. We fear what we do not understand, and so we turn our backs on it. We fear change, because change means uncertainty. But perhaps that uncertainty is the very thing we need. Perhaps this is our chance to break the cycle, to build something new." His words cut through the tension like a blade. And for a moment, the room was still. The council members turned their gazes toward him, their minds racing as they considered the possibility he presented. Keelan's history was one of profound wisdom, and his words held the weight of countless generations. He had seen empires rise and fall, and yet here he was, urging the galaxy to take a risk, to move forward, to embrace the unknown. Keelan paused before continuing. "I have seen the destruction of worlds, the fall of alliances, and the rise of powers that only sought to conquer. If we allow ourselves to be ruled by fear, we will only ensure that the cycle repeats. If we allow humanity the chance to help us, if we can truly work together, perhaps we can forge a future that is different. Not perfect, but better. And better is all we can hope for." There was a long silence after his words, each leader deep in thought. Some were still hesitant, the scars of past betrayals and invasions too fresh in their minds to easily trust the humans. But others were moved by the idea of a new beginning, the possibility of overcoming the old ways of war and fear. Captain Grant, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, stepped forward once again. His expression was one of patience, but his eyes held a quiet determination. "We understand your fear," he said, his voice calm but resolute. "We are asking you to trust us not because we are perfect, but because we believe in the potential for something better. We cannot undo the past, but we can build the future. We can do it together." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that resonated with many in the room. Trust was not something that could be given lightly, and it was clear that humanity had no expectation of it being freely offered. They were asking for a partnership, not domination. They were offering knowledge, technology, and a vision for a shared future, one where no species would be forced to rely on fear or power alone. Slowly, the leaders began to look at one another, their expressions softening, their fear beginning to give way to cautious hope. It was not a sudden shift, but it was undeniable. The galaxy had been divided for too long, and now, with humanity's arrival, it seemed there was a chance to change that, to create something new, something that did not rely on the past. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, High Counselor Erin spoke again. "It is time," she said, her voice firm but hopeful. "We will take this chance. We will trust you, humanity. Together, we will work toward a future that is worthy of the stars." A ripple of murmurs spread through the council, a collective sigh of relief mixed with the weight of their decision. The future of the galaxy was no longer certain, but it was in motion. Humanity had been granted a place at the table. There would be challenges ahead, doubts to overcome, mistrust to dispel, but the first step had been taken. The council had made its choice. They had chosen unity over fear, hope over doubt. The galaxy would not be the same after this moment, but in that uncertainty, there was potential. A new age was dawning, and humanity would be a part of it. And so, as the representatives filed out of the chamber, the stars outside seemed a little brighter, as if even the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. As the days after the summit unfolded, the galaxy's leaders found themselves on the precipice of something monumental. The decision had been made. After hours of heated discussions, debates, and even moments of tense silence, the majority of the council had voted to accept humanity's offer. It was not a unanimous decision, but the majority had spoken. A new chapter in the galaxy's history was about to begin, and with it came both excitement and fear. Captain Grant and his envoy received the news with quiet solemnity. There were no celebrations, no outward signs of triumph. Humanity's representatives knew that this was only the beginning. Acceptance had been granted, but the true test was still ahead. How would the galaxy react to the integration of humanity's knowledge and influence? Could the fragile trust that had been built last through the inevitable challenges that lay ahead? Only time would tell. As the diplomatic teams from both humanity and the galaxy's major species met to begin the work of cooperation, the reality of the situation began to set in. Humanity's offer had been accepted, but what did it truly mean to work together? The transition from a galaxy at war to one of peace and collaboration was not going to be easy. Even among those who had supported humanity's arrival, there was a simmering unease. Cooperation was one thing, but compromise was another. Every species had its own way of life, its own customs, and its own ideas about how the galaxy should function. Could humanity's ideal of a peaceful future fit into the existing order, or would it be an impossible dream? Meanwhile, Chancellor Viler of the Tsalkor Dominion, who had fiercely opposed humanity's arrival, began to rally his supporters. He had not given up on his mission to challenge humanity's growing influence. "We were right to fear them," he said in secret meetings with his closest allies. "The humans are not to be trusted. They may offer peace now, but it is only a prelude to their true intentions. They will use their newfound influence to control us, to reshape the galaxy in their image. We must act before it is too late." Viler's warnings were not taken lightly. There were still factions throughout the galaxy that held deep reservations about humanity's place in the future. These concerns grew as rumors began to spread. Whispers in dark corners of space spoke of a secret agenda, of human factions that had not been represented at the summit, factions that held ambitions that could threaten the peace humanity had promised. Some began to question if the peaceful envoy they had met in the capital was truly representative of humanity as a whole. Was the ship of peace just the first step in a much larger, more dangerous plan? Despite the growing tensions, Captain Grant and his envoy moved forward, determined to prove humanity's commitment to peace. They worked tirelessly with the galaxy's leaders to lay the foundation for collaboration, and slowly but surely there began to be real progress. The humans offered new energy sources to worlds ravaged by resource wars, shared medical breakthroughs that saved countless lives, and introduced technologies that promised to unite the galaxy in ways never thought possible. Small but significant steps were made, and humanity's reputation began to shift, even among its most vocal critics. But even as humanity began to integrate into the galaxy's political and technological landscape, there were those who resisted. While many recognized the benefits of cooperation, the fear of the unknown, of losing what they had fought so long to protect, continued to fester. The distrust that had been so deeply ingrained over millennia could not simply be wiped away with promises. And then, as if to remind everyone of the fragile nature of peace, an unexpected event occurred. A rogue faction of humans, not officially aligned with the peaceful efforts of Captain Grant, launched an attack on a nearby neutral world, claiming it was to protect human interests. The attack was swift and devastating, a stark contrast to the peaceful image humanity had worked so hard to cultivate. The galaxy was stunned. Captain Grant and his envoy were thrust into the spotlight again, forced to address the situation. It was clear that the rogue group had acted without approval, but the damage had been done. The galaxy's trust in humanity was shaken, and the dream of a united galaxy seemed more fragile than ever. Could humanity survive this challenge? Would the galaxy's leaders continue to trust them? Or would this act of aggression tear apart the fragile alliance they had built? The future was once again uncertain, and humanity's place in the galaxy was now at risk. The attack on the neutral world sent shockwaves across the galaxy, igniting fear and anger in every corner of the cosmos. For many, it was the proof they had feared, the idea that humanity's peaceful intentions were nothing more than a facade. The rogue faction's actions seemed to confirm the worst suspicions of humanity's critics. Was this just the first sign of a greater ambition? The galaxy held its breath, waiting for what would come next. Captain Elias Grant stood before the galaxy's council once again, the weight of the crisis pressing heavily on his shoulders. His calm demeanor had not wavered, but inside, he was battling the very real consequences of the rogue faction's actions. The humans who had committed the attack had done so without the support or authorization of the peaceful factions that had arrived in the galaxy. It was a betrayal of the ideals that they had worked so hard to establish. But how could they prove that to a galaxy now full of doubt? Rest assured, Captain Grant began, addressing the council, this attack does not represent humanity as a whole. It was the work of extremists, individuals with their own agenda. We have already initiated a full investigation and will work tirelessly to ensure that those responsible are brought to justice. But the damage had already been done. The trust humanity had so carefully built was fraying at the edges, and the voices of opposition grew louder. Chancellor Weiler of the Salkor Dominion seized the opportunity, denouncing humanity's presence in the galaxy with fervor. This is the true face of humanity, he declared, his voice filled with venom. They may speak of peace, but their true nature has been exposed. They cannot be trusted, and they will never change. The debate was fierce, with factions split on how to handle humanity's future. Some argued that the attack was an isolated incident, the work of a rogue group, and that humanity should not be judged by the actions of a few extremists. Others, like Weiler, saw this as the perfect justification to demand humanity's expulsion from the galactic community. The Council's decision seemed more uncertain than ever. In the midst of the uproar, a voice of reason rose above the noise. High Counselor Erin of the Telleri Order, A trusted diplomat spoke with clarity and compassion. We cannot allow one incident, however devastating, to undo everything we've worked for. Humanity is not perfect, but neither are we. We too have our dark histories, our moments of shame. The question we must ask ourselves is not whether humanity is capable of making mistakes. They have already proven they are. But whether we are willing to extend the hand of forgiveness, to give them the chance to prove that they can rise above this and build the peace they promised. Her words resonated with many in the room. Slowly, cautiously, the council began to consider the bigger picture. Yes, the rogue attack had been horrifying, but it was also a reminder that the path to peace was not simple. Trust would take time, and humanity had shown itself willing to be held accountable for its actions. The galaxy had been fractured for so long. Could they truly afford to throw away the possibility of unity because of one mistake? Captain Grant, though weary, stood tall as the council deliberated. "We will make this right," he pledged, his voice unwavering. "We will not allow this betrayal to define us. We will prove that humanity can be trusted, not through words alone, but through actions. We ask only for the chance to continue working toward the future we promised." The council's decision came slowly, but eventually, a resolution was reached. Humanity would not be expelled. Instead, they would be held to a higher standard, and a new council, composed of both humans and representatives from various species, would be established to ensure transparency and accountability moving forward. Humanity had been given a second chance, but it was clear that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be no more room for mistakes, no more room for fear. The galaxy had taken a monumental step. The dream of unity was still alive, but it was a fragile hope. It would take years, decades, even centuries, to build the trust and cooperation needed to create a lasting peace. But humanity had proven that it was willing to face its flaws and continue striving toward a better future, and for that, the galaxy was willing to give them a chance. And so, the galaxy moved forward, not without doubt, not without fear, but with a new sense of possibility. The arrival of humanity had changed everything, and while the future remained uncertain, the possibility of a united galaxy was no longer just a dream. It was a reality they were now all working to build together.